Eternal winter. Some would call it a premonition, but Katya called it jealousy. How long can you wait? The restaurant, the guests, the red silk dress flowing down her slender hips. Blonde, artfully pinned curls. Long eyelashes, well, yes, slightly false, but skillfully, inconspicuously, eyebrows, sinuous lips, her own, not made Katya's pride. Beauty, nymph, goddess. Well, who's to say she's 36? 23, 25 at the most. She looked at her reflection in the huge restaurant mirrors with pleasure. So where is he? When is he coming? Katya had already called and sent messages to her husband, but the caller was unreachable and unavailable. Even if you consider that the flight was delayed, her husband had to be here, and he was disastrously late for his own birthday. And Catherine was wildly jealous of his work, of the employees, of the clients for whom he was always just as available. The party went on as usual. The guests were having fun, drinking wine, making jokes about the absent birthday boy. Katya incessantly looked at the phone screen, first furtively, then almost non-stop typing and listening to a soulless voice. Suddenly, the phone melodically came to life, vibrating. Katerina opened the message and froze. Just two pictures from a strange, unfamiliar, evil number stopped time for her, distorted space. She was mesmerized by the photo, where her caustic was dozing in the arms of his mistress, so young and fresh that Katya even admired it. And the latter, looking at her from the picture defiantly, openly with a sense of superiority. And the second photo, a morning, touching, in which the expectant mother is simply glowing with happiness, and the man beside her is gently fixing her hair. You can't see the man, he's taking the picture, but the hand, so familiar and loved, she would not confuse with anyone else's hand. For some reason, the music has faded away, the guests have gone somewhere. In this new altered space and time, Katya drank whiskey straight from the bottle, sitting behind the wheel of the car, and chased away from the city. Classic of the genre, said her friend, looking at the pictures, and it was this phrase that somehow blew up the light and darkness. Tears of despair, self-pity and hatred mixed all the colors. And Svetka's whispers about some aunt in the country, who can help, nonsense about a spell and reversal made sense. And something about a source that can fulfill a true desire, and only this aunt in a remote village knows where it is. Katya believed both in the aunt and in the source. If it was a city charlatan, she would not have believed it, but here is an aunt in a remote village. She doesn't take money, only something there as a gift. Katya did not care what, just to get rid of this burning, acute feeling that drove her into the night. She raced through the prickly snow and blinding headlights, roaring, drunkenly wailing in her voice, sipping from the bottle and roaring again, smearing mascara on her cheeks. There was a signpost, to turn left and 2 kilometers inland. Katya stopped at the first house, got out of the car and staggered along the windows. She knocked on the window quietly, scratching, then louder, louder. The dog barked. Finally, the sleepy owner came out and yelled at the dog, at Katya. She understood from what was said, that the aunt she wanted really lived in this village, in the last house. The car shrieked and raced through the sleeping village, alarming all the dogs. The light in the house at the edge of the village was on. Katerina took another sip of whiskey, opened the photos on her phone, and again rage, and a sense of hopelessness overwhelmed her. She walked down the crooked, narrow path to the house, slipping and not hitting the trail, shining the phone with the hateful pictures like a flashlight. She stopped on the porch, once again looked at the arrogant look of her mistress, and resolutely entered the house without knocking. Here you come. What do you want? It's the middle of the night. A woman of indeterminate age was cooking soup in a pot. Are you really, this? Are you psychic or something? Katerina staggered slightly, and sat down on the now-worn stool, squeezing into the narrow space between the table and the refrigerator. The sleeve of her light mink coat grazed the table, squeamishly pulling her hand away from the sticky oilcloth with sunflowers. The ordinariness of the surroundings confused and disappointed Katerina. She was expecting something strange or unusual, but not this old oilcloth. And the aunt stood all the time with her arms crossed across her chest and mockingly watched Katya's attempts to sit upright and not fall down anywhere. "What do you need? A charm, a reversal?" Katya blinked, then fussed, began to look whether her purse or phone. She awkwardly dropped her knife from the table, picked it up, knocked it on the corner, and burst into tears. I hate it. Katerina turned on the phone, which happened to be in her hand all the time, and began to poke her mistress with it, showing her rival's neat little tummy. "So let's do a ritual or something. A reversal. And if you want to go to the source, then wait for the summer." But Katya didn't want to, she couldn't wait so long for summer. "Give me your hand here." And Katerina held out her palm to her aunt. Beautiful long fingers, manicure, and an engagement ring. Thin, elegant with a small stone. When she and Kostik were getting married, they could not afford more expensive, but Katka loved the ring, and was not going to change it. The witch grasped her tenaciously by the wrist, mistress-like examination of the hand, palm. Like a chicken in the market, Katerina chuckled to herself drunkenly. "Think, wench. Come on, think why you came here. What you really want." The witch squeezed Katya's hand tightly, closed her eyes, and breathed heavily. She held Katka with her right hand, while her left hand rested on the kitchen knife, which she had stuck straight into the table. Something invisible changed in the air. The light from the lamp became unbearably bright, to the point of gnawing in her eyes. Katya closed her eyes and listened to the witch's voice as if she were hypnotized. And there was no doubt that she was a witch. Powerful, demanding voice subjugated her will and mind, forced Katerina to imagine her true desire, clearly and distinctly. "I have nothing for you. Go to the source." The witch took Katerina by the ring finger and pulled off her wedding ring. "So what? It is even more correct. I do not care now." All other thoughts were confused, except one. Katya wanted revenge. And not just any revenge, but a terrible revenge that atoned for her humiliation and betrayal. "Go to the spring, straight down the road to the river. At the bridge, turn left into the field. When you go 10 meters away, there's a rusty pipe sticking up and water is pouring out. You hear it, it never freezes." And there Katya was back on the road by the car, and that big iron monster was something from the old life, where Katya could be abandoned and humiliated by her husband, and made a fool and a clown in front of her friends. Where she roared with jealousy. And now something had happened to her. Katya could feel it. She was an angel, a cruel and relentless angel of revenge. Or a demon. She hadn't decided yet. In this new hypostasis, Katya quickly ran to the river and the bridge. She turned left, into the field, into the snow. She was rushing forward, scooping the wet, icy slush with her fancy boots. Sharp branches from the bushes clung to her dress and tore into long scarlet streaks. The witch stepped out onto the porch, peering into the darkness as if deciding on something. Then she swung around and tossed Katya's ring. Something invisible and intangible responded to this offering, smacked greedily, sighed contentedly. Or was it the heavy and thawed snow that had fallen, sliding off the village roof? The witch returned to the house, looked in the mirror, and grinned at her newly rejuvenated reflection. So many years had passed, and the contract was still in force. Here is the rusty pipe, which Katya did not so much notice as hear the sound of flowing water in the silence. The vial which must have done something to Katerina. How else to explain that she did not feel the cold and put her palms under the icy jets of water? In a kind of madness Katka whispered her terrible desire, sipping the nasty bitter salty spring water from her palms. The cold air was becoming thick and humming, like a stretched wet sheet. Katya did not notice anything. With whitened lips she begged for a painful death for the unborn baby and the mother-to-be. Something evil, which had taken Katya's gift, fulfilled her request. Very close by, somewhere near Kaluga, a young woman with a photograph could not cope with the car, which suddenly skidded on a slippery road and by an absurd, tragic accident, went off the bridge. The ice failed, and the car slowly went under the water with her. It was at that moment that Katka suddenly felt that her wish had come true, her revenge had been accomplished. The sounds returned, the darkness and the cold, the impossible, piercing, killing her cold. Katka rushed away from the source. The wet silk dress clung to her feet and prevented her from fleeing the terrible place. The road to safety was close, only 10 meters away. But Katka walked and walked, stumbling, falling and freezing. Somehow, she already knew that she would not be able to escape. She would walk in circles, returning again and again to the spring. In the morning, from the road, someone saw an eerie yet mesmerizing picture. In the snow, leaning against a rusty pipe sat a beautiful girl, who looked like a broken porcelain doll. Her torn silk dress flamed in the white snow. A gusty wind picked up the scarlet ribbons, fluttered and tangled her delicate curls, and hung them on the black branches of the bushes. Ice-cold water from a rusty pipe trickled thinly down the white porcelain hand. Fear froze in her eyes. She knew that her winter would last forever.